What's good, everybody? It's me, Winston A, aka the Swaggy Blerd, and welcome to the full review, the full spoiler review of Spider-Man No Way Home. I did the non-spoiler, dropped my thoughts back on Monday before the movie had come out, but now that, we've got Thursday night out, we got Friday night out, I wanted to come here and really just talk about the film. Now, I'm not going to do a super long one on this either, just because I've got two other places where I am really talking about this. Jay and I have done a spoiler review for Blerds N The Hood. Should be out soon. I would probably say later today, but keep an eye out for that. And then, of course, with Kristian, Harloff, and Jandreu for The Big Thing, we did the Spider-Man rewatches, and we ultimately came back to talk about No Way Home as well. So my first thing just out of the gate, as I said in the non-spoiler, that this really became my probably my second favorite Spider-Man film behind Spider-Verse. I'm supposed to see it for a second time today, and I have a very strong feeling that I'm going to feel differently about it after seeing it, that it may overtake Spider-Verse for me. I think what the initial thought process behind that was, again, this is a spoiler review at this point, I was like, okay, you kind of have the benefit of all of the Tobey movies, all of the Garfield movies, all of the Holland movies, plus the MCU to kind of build this up. And I was like, man, Spider-Verse did all that in 90 minutes versus this, which was 2 hours and some change. Plus, you were able to bring those previous Spider-Men in that people have been freaking out about. You brought Charlie Cox in, which people were freaking out about, of saving Daredevil. You see the Rogers, for those that are watching Hawkeye, I guess a minor spoiler for that, but not really. I mean, it's not a plot point. But the Rogers musical in here. So you just have so many elements kind of hyping it up a little more than Spider-Verse, which kind of did it on its own, did it in kind of a unique story and all that kind of stuff, because this does have elements of kind of the summing it up endgame scenario. But the more I have talked about this, the more I've thought about it, and as I'm ready to go see it a second time this weekend, I'm just realizing that none of that really matters because of just how well done all of this really was. First of all, I talk about it a little bit in the Big Thing review, but one of the things that really off-put me, I don't have a problem with people having, they don't like the movie as much as everybody else, but I saw a really bad take where people were like, there's no character development and you should be spending that time in this film, making people like these characters. Well, one, this is the end of a trilogy. You don't come to the end part of a game and go, well, you should start with the opening kickoff. No, motherfucker, if you didn't go and see, excuse my language, but if you didn't go and see this stuff before, then get out of here. But second of all, I wonder if you just wanted to hate or if you genuinely watched the movie. Because from the opening sequence, you immediately find out who these main characters are. You find out immediately about Peter and Zendaya, or MJ, excuse me, that they're kids and that their whole world is crumbling, and that like Peter is used to being Spider-Man, MJ just now getting used to web slinging, she hates it, all that kind of stuff. Their dynamic, how he'll do anything to protect her. But same thing when you get later on in the film. I'm not going to go play by play because I do this in two other spoiler reviews. I just kind of wanted to give some solo thoughts out here. You watch as their relationship continues to evolve. The fact that like Peter goes to Doctor Strange to try and fix this whole thing, and Mary Jane, MJ, because it's Michelle Jones. So MJ is like, hey, you should have just come and talked to us first. Like, we're in this together. Like, I appreciate you trying to solve this, but we can solve this. And watching that development there, watching how Peter proves time and time again to be completely selfless, to do everything that he can for other people, including the fact that when Strange is like, we got to send them back immediately, and the villains find out, oh, I got pulled right before I got killed. And our Peter, our Tom, the MCU Spidey, being like, no, we can't just send them back to die. Like, we have a responsibility to try and help them and then try and like give them a second chance. The fact that he's doing that no matter how dangerous it is, because obviously they're not really going along with this at first. They have to be kind of coerced into it. And that the only thing that genuinely takes him off that path is from Norman Osborn, Green Goblin, killing Aunt May and letting that be the reason that like his rage overtakes him, which it would for anyone. It's the same thing you saw with Peter in the Maguire Spider-Man, which he talks about. Someone killed my Uncle Ben and I tracked him to the ends of the earth. The fact that when you get Garfield talking about his, it's like, once Gwen Stacy died, I stopped pulling my punches. I start, you know what I'm saying? This is the same thing that you see with a lot of characters when they have this loss, and one of two things has to happen. Either they go full Punisher with it and they're out here with a vengeance just trying to kill everybody, and that's their brand of justice and how they do it, or they go the route of the Spider-Man or the Batman where it's like, you know what, I've hit this breaking point, but this is a line that I won't cross. And you see it, Tom is about to cross that line, and thank God for this brotherhood that comes from Toby and from Andrew, from these other two Spider-Men, to be like, it's okay, like, don't go to that level, you know, like, you are something great, you are a better man than that. And for our Spidey, in this sense, our MCU Spidey, to realize that and to grow into it. And again, you see the consistency of Tom's Peter, in that from the beginning, is he bummed out about MIT? Of course. Is he upset that his face is out there? But he's more concerned about people bothering Aunt May and people bothering MJ and Ned. You know, he's more concerned about Ned and MJ going to MIT if he doesn't, because it's his decisions that led to their downfall, and he doesn't want that to happen. So even when he goes to talk to the MIT vice chancellor, you know, the recruitment chair, whatever title that she has, the fact that he doesn't go there to be like, I need to get into MIT, I want to go to MIT. I mean, he obviously does, but that's not his focus. His focus is on his friends. I can't think of more character development than that. And the same thing with MJ and Ned, about them really coming into their own, of trying to help figure this out and do what they need to do. And I think the biggest growth for those two characters really is them as like that trio, that kind of Harry Potter trio, one way or the other. But we focus a lot on Peter's development, and I think there was this idea that, oh, this was just an Iron Man Jr. trilogy, that's all this was. And if you really pay attention to the trilogy, if you really pay attention and don't come in with biased eyes, it's the hero worship of Tony in the first one, right? It is the death of Tony and can I live up to him in the second one, but realizing, and then at the end of that, and then really here, no, I'm my own man. So striking out on his own at the end of the second one, and then in the third one, what does that mean to be my own man, to be my own superhero? Which is why there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek jabs at Iron Man Jr. out here murdering people, like all that stuff in the newspaper, stuff like that. And why by the time we get to the end of the film, he's no longer using Tony's suits. He's not using any of Tony's tech. You know, maybe he kept some of the web shooter elements or things like that, but he goes and makes his own suit. Obviously, part of it is because nobody knows who Peter Parker is anymore, so he doesn't have the ready access to it, but he made that decision. He made the decision that whatever it takes, he really is that friendly neighborhood Spider-Man of whatever it takes to defend the ones I love and to defend the people that he calls fellow citizens, fellow New Yorkers, fellow Earthlings. Whatever it takes, he'll do it. I absolutely love that. I love what John Watts and this team did for that. Tom Holland, I mentioned this on the big thing, and so does Kristian and Coy. I would say that I feel like Tom and Willem Dafoe both honestly deserve Oscar nominations for this. I don't think they're gonna get it. I certainly don't think that Tom should win, and that's not a knock on his performance. I just, for me, Will Smith still is the front runner with King Richard. If you haven't seen that, I highly recommend seeing that. So in my mind, Will Smith still kind of is the front runner on that. But the things that Tom is able to do, the depth of emotion that he's able to reach, from actual teenage angst and panic to pure excitement, to absolute rage and absolute devastation. And Tom does it with so little. If he needs to go big, he'll go big. But it's just all here. And there's some actors that can't necessarily control it that succinctly. I think where it shines through the best, and I do think it helps that he's dating Zendaya, is those moments with her. You can just see that little twinkle in his eye, whether it be from hurt or love or whatever. He's really digging there, but you see it also. I don't know anybody that does death scenes, whether dying or watching someone die, better than Tom Holland in that. I think about him back in an Infinity War and that panic and that fear of like, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. And then with May, like, yo, you're fine, get up, like, what are you doing? And just watching him go in that full place of denial. I don't know if Tom has ever experienced that before. I unfortunately have, both personally and through friends. And I know exactly where he's going to. And there's it's funny, some people might look at it and call it a little bit cheesy, but I look at it and you see that if you've ever been there, life doesn't make sense at all. For that brief moment, it literally, the best way I can describe it in movies, you hear that like loud whine and like your ears kind of like, time doesn't make sense when that happens. And to watch Tom so masterfully capture that is just absolutely incredible. But I think some of the other things that really have to be spoken up, I mean, first of all, Willem Dafoe, I think, might be my favorite part of the movie. Even though obviously I love what Tom did, I love Toby and what Andrew did. Willem Dafoe, I genuinely was taken off guard by his performance. I was not ready for him to, like, I didn't believe it at first when he like smashed the mask, like, oh, he's good now. No, I didn't believe that at all. I was like, nah, homie definitely is up to something. But as we were watching it happen, I started to be like, okay, maybe Norman really does have this under control, and I fell for it. And that, I think, is like, maybe I'm naive. That, I think, is just a real good sign of how good of an actor he really is, to make me think that he had genuinely shut the Goblin up. Because throughout every other instance when we saw it, the Goblin was raging pretty true, and there would be signs of it. And there were little subtle ones that I didn't catch on right away. Like, for example, when they're at feast and Tom is talking to Aunt May, or when Peter's talking to Aunt May about Norman's in the back pocketing a bunch of donuts. Now that seems kind of silly to be like a thing. It's like, okay, well, if this Norman is supposed to be kind of like without a home and all that stuff, the feast is where people are going for that, okay. But that's a little something that Goblin would do. It's like the donuts are there for everybody, and he's out here being like, I'm gonna take all the donuts. Like, it's the most effed up thing to do. But like, it's a very little subtle thing that if you notice little behaviors like that, you know that it's actually the Goblin that's running the show here. And so even the way that it was like done with his reveal was so phenomenal, having to use the spider sense to try and pinpoint where it was happening. But the brutality, the absolute brutality of that fight, of Willem Dafoe, of Norman slamming Peter through concrete floor till they hit the ground floor, and Peter's trying to keep up and can't necessarily keep up, but he's holding his own, and then he finally starts to get the upper hand. But then Goblin was like, you know what, I'm gonna give you exactly what you need, because he's always been trying to get, you remember, he tried to recruit Tobey Maguire's Peter and be like, we're gods, you should join me, and he wouldn't do it. So he was like, fine, if you won't do it, then I'll kill you. He's like, I'm going to give you that one thing you need to go over the edge. So he takes Aunt May's life by hitting her with the collider. From top to bottom, Willem Dafoe's character was phenomenal, and it even speaks back to his red carpet interview where he's like, I would never come back and just do a cameo, but when they asked me about it and they actually gave me something to do, especially just because obviously Willem Dafoe being a phenomenal actor, but he's getting a little bit older and he wants to be part of the stunts and stuff, and I heard that he did do a lot of the stunts here in No Way Home. I get it, not wanting to, like, once you get to a certain age and you've done as much as you've done in your career, you want to only take on the juicy stuff, and then otherwise you're just kind of chilling. Like, he's been there, done that, and so the fact that they gave him so much to do and he really did a great job with it is what was so cool. So other than that, I mean, some of the other highlights, the Doctor Strange Spider-Man fight scene was incredible, especially the spider sense helping prevent him from getting to the box. I thought it was funny. The nods when I gotta talk about Tobey and Andrew. I audibly said out loud when Andrew caught MJ, I was like, redemption! Just because we know how devastating that was for him losing Gwen. He talks about it in the film. He talks about how it made him a darker person and it took time for him to grow and recover. There's even a deleted scene if you've watched Amazing Spider-Man 2 on either iTunes Extra or Blu-ray or whatever the hell, where he keeps revisiting the grave and he's just hollow on the inside. And so that was that moment. I think we didn't need Tom to do it, though I panicked for a second when the Goblin took him away. Andrew needed that. He really, really needed that. Andrew's Peter needed that, and watching him as well, so subtle, but just the tears and that twinkle in his eye of like, oh God, and exercising those demons as best he can was, it was chilling. And Tobey, I feel like I have been maybe too hard on Tobey's Peter. Obviously for the times, I thought that he did a great job. Upon the rewatch, he ended up being my least favorite of the three, and it was too campy. But the truth is, everything about those Raimi movies were kind of in that camp mode. That was what superhero movies kind of were at the time, and that doesn't mean that they were bad movies. They weren't, but just for me, the original three Spider-Man movies were a little bit dated, so rewatching them just didn't do it for me. But there is something that I have said about all of it, is that this film gave this opportunity by seeing that further arc growth of Tobey's Peter, of Norman's Goblin, of Jamie Foxx's Electro, to allow their arcs to complete, to give them one final chunk to their arc, which puts everything within a proper framework, if that makes sense. And so watching Tobey now, a Spider-Man in his 40s, like all the wisdom in the world, been there, done that, found his love with MJ and worked it out, and just being the older brother to these other two Spider-Men. I mean, obviously Andrew has, grown himself, but it definitely feels like a older, middle, and younger brother scenario there. There was this grace and wisdom about Tobey that just really did it for me. And I think the one thing that I really wanted that we didn't get a lot of during his run, obviously we knew he was like smart. I mean, there was the talks with Dr. Connors and blah, blah, blah. And, occasionally, like at the very beginning of the first Spider-Man film, like him being the nerd and Harry stealing his information about the museum, the science lab they're at, to try and impress MJ. We didn't get to see Peter Parker, the scientist, really out of Tobey. It didn't happen a lot. It happened, but it did not happen a lot. Not the same way that we saw it with Andrew developing his web shooters, as well as Tom, his sort of stuff, and even being able to watch him come up with all unique plans, and even know how to use Tony's tech smart enough to do that, to make his own suit and things like that. We never really got Peter the scientist. And so having that moment where he was like, I've thought about for years that if I could, I would want to develop an antidote for Norman, even for my friend Harry, for that serum. And he goes into the lab with them to do that. Amazing. That was the probably the biggest missing element to me, is to take him a little bit out of the campiness and give me a little bit more of Peter the scientist. And that was all I was personally missing. And I got both. And again, full wrap up on all that. So if I have to rate this, I would say out of 5, I would give it a 5, to be honest with you. I honestly think that this is one of the best movies, not only of 2021, but of the MCU. Obviously, I have made the argument that right now it's my second favorite Spider-Man film, but again, by this evening, it could very easily be my number 1. And I really just had a good time with it. All the little moments, all the tongue-in-cheek moments, Ned's grandma, Hannibal Buress, Martin Starr, and JB Smoove, the 3 teachers that he really interacts with, and their thing, hysterical. Like 3 of the funniest people on the planet, and they've been very funny within this franchise, and their kind of back and forth has been phenomenal. Aunt May, from the love to the tragedy there, just phenomenal. Like, this is just a really, really well done movie. Is it flawless? No. There are little things here and there that can be kind of tweaked. Little questions about the spell and how that was working and everything like that. Most of it answered for the most part, but just like little things of like, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong here. I know I just hit the rewatch, but again, it's been a couple of weeks. Sandman didn't die. And the big thing they kept talking about was all these people were brought in right before they were supposed to die. Neither did Electro disappeared. We don't really know if he died per se, and I don't remember the Lizard dying. I just remember him getting kind of cured, and it was Gwen Stacy's dad that died, Captain Stacy. So little tiny things here and there, but nothing is flawless. There's really not a single thing that I could think of that is completely 100% across the board didn't have something slightly off. So I really, really enjoyed this film. By far the best MCU film of the year. Obviously Shang-Chi was incredible. I enjoyed Black Widow. I really loved Eternals personally, but this easily caps all of those. And I would even argue we got a lot of MCU content. I mean, we got WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, What If, and now Hawkeye, as far as like Disney Plus series. And I think it trumps all of those too, even though those had some pretty incredible moments. What is grief but love persevering? Like, I mean, what a line. But this took the cake for me. So huge shout out to the entire crew that was there, that helped make this film possible. Shout out to the MCU in general for bringing us great content all year long. And I can't recommend enough, if you have already seen this film once, go see it again. I mean, it's just that good. I love seeing good cinema, because that's what it is. It is all of your spectacle, all of your action, all of your superhero fluff, but done as really good cinema. Let's just be honest. It was shot beautifully. It was written beautifully. It was directed beautifully. It was acted beautifully. So, all right, y'all. So that's going to be it for my spoiler review. Again, please don't hesitate to watch the Blerds N The Hood one that we are dropping probably later today, if not this weekend. The big thing, No Way Home, like discussion spoiler review with Coy and Kristian. And then be sure, if you haven't already, should have said it at the top, please subscribe to this channel. I'm trying to continue to grow it. I'm going to be bringing all sorts of stuff, reviews, as you have seen too now, sketches as I've done. I mean, I just actually posted my hosting reel. I did my acting one earlier in the year, just because I continue to do more and more stuff and continue to grow out. And that's just really, I love talking to y'all. I love performing for y'all, entertaining for y'all. It is my life's work, and it was cool going back making those reels, because I got a chance to see I've really done a lot over the years, and I'm really proud of what I've done, and I want to continue to do that and grow, and I want to grow with you. So please, if you haven't, hit the subscription button, hit the bell as well, so you're aware of when I post new things and stuff like that. And just thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, to share this out. If you do all that good stuff, you all are the absolute best. So with that, y'all, stay swaggy. I'm out.